Power BI, managing and building relationships. We're going to talk about that in today's video. Show you two different ways you can manage and build your relationships. We're going to focus in on a one-to-many relationship. We're going to start off with a small model because that's the best way to learn more about how to manage those relationships. We'll show you how the data flows downward and how you can get some of the results that you see once you build those relationships. So it's Power BI, managing and building relationships. We're going to show you two ways to build relationships, delete them, and then show you a second way. And it's one of the more powerful functions that you need to learn: relationship building, manage the relationships in Power BI. Back in Power BI, today we are going to show you how to manage and build your relationships when you are starting a new Power BI file. We are in Power BI and we are going to load some new sources of data. And the advantage of Power BI, when you start to load multiple sources of data, you can start to use those relationships to create more advanced formulas using DAX and also calculated columns to build out your data models to get more insights from your data. So starting off, we are going to import from getting data. We are going to use a text CSV file, and we're going to bring in three sources of data. The first one is going to be our customers file, which is a CSV file, and we're going to import by opening that up into Power BI. So now that will bring up the Power Query ribbon in just a moment. The first thing it does is bring up the customer CSV file. We're going to hit the transform data, and that will bring in Power Query. Now, Power Query, we've done some recent videos on how to use the transformations. There's only one change we're going to make to this file. And if you notice in the first row, the headers, we want to get them up and substitute, rather than column 1, column 2, column 3, we want it to be customer ID, company name, and contact name. In order to do this, we go to the transform, and we're going to use the use first row as headers. This will bring those up to that first row. So now we have customer ID, company name, contact title, and then the data is in the different rows. We have 91 rows and 6 columns in this table. The second query, we're going to go to the Home tab, and we are going to bring in a new source of data. We're going to bring in the shippers for this company. It is a text CSV file, and the name of the file is called shippers, and we're going to open that up, and we're going to make no changes. The shippers is a very small file. It's got 3 rows. The headers are correctly at the top, and the next source of data is going to be a CSV file, and it's going to be orders. So we've got in the customers, we've got in the shippers, and now we're going to bring in the orders. So orders is a CSV file, and those are the 3 sources of data. We see that it's a CSV, it's comma delimited, and it has everything correct. So now we have 3 queries. We have a customer's query, we have a shipper's query, and we have an orders query. And if you notice, we have names, we have the applied steps. All we need to do now is close and apply. That will actually load the data. So when you bring it into Power Query and you make your changes, the data hasn't actually been loaded into the model. And all 3 of these are going to load. And on the right-hand side, you see our 3 data sources: customers, orders, and shippers. We're currently in the report view in Power BI. What we want to do is go to the model view, and it is the bottom one of the 3 icons on the left side. Now, the model view is where we start to build out the different relationships, and this is where we manage the relationships. Now, when you bring in a new file, it automatically detects these relationships. So we're going to delete those. So we're going to delete that one. We're going to delete this relationship, and we're going to start from scratch. So the first thing we want to do is find the matching column to the orders table. So what we have from the shipping is a shipper ID, and for shippers, we have a shipper ID. So if we drag the shipper ID over to shipper ID, that creates a one-to-many relationship because we only have one shipper, but we have a lot of orders. And so those shippers can be used more than once. Now from the customer table, we're going to use the customer ID, and we're going to bring that over to the customer ID. Again, there's only one customer in each of these tables. So to show you, when you go to the shippers, there's only 3 rows of data. Shipper number 1 is Speedy Express. Shipper number 2 is United Package. And shipper number 3 is Federal Shipping. When you go to the orders and we filter by the shipper ID, there's going to be hundreds. So if we select just the number 1, look at all of these orders shipped by shipper ID number 1. So that is why you want to build that relationship, and we'll show you how this works. So we go back to the model view, and we see that we have a one-to-many relationship from shippers, a one-to-many relationship on customer ID. So we're going to build one measure in this model to show you how this works. So on the orders table, we're going to create a new measure, and the new measure is going to be number of orders. And the number of orders is going to be calculated. Remember, a measure needs a measure name, and then you need the syntax is going to be count rows. Count rows only requires one data point. And if you look at your IntelliSense, it requires the table. And the table is the order, because every row in this orders table is an order. There's no duplicate orders. We close out that parenthesis. And what we can do now is test our relationship in this model. So we have a measure, which is this little calculator icon. And if we click into the model view and click on the table icon, we will bring in from the customers table, we will bring in all of the customer names. The customer names will now appear. And if we bring in from the orders, the number of orders that they have is the number of orders. And if we sort this, if we click on this number of orders, that'll sort it from high to low. So Jose Pavarotti has 31 orders. Roland Mendel has 30 orders. And the total number of orders is 830. If we build a second table and we import the shippers, the name of the shippers, and now we bring over the number of orders, we have 830 orders, same number of orders. And the reason how we can check that is if we go to the orders table, there's 830 rows. Each row is an order. So that matches up. So now we have 830 orders, and we have 255 from Federal Shipping, 249 from Speedy Express. So if we go to the Manage Relationships, if we delete these relationships, we're going to show you the results of the model. So we'll delete those relationships. We go back to the report view, and if you noticed, every single one of these has 830 because there's no relationship. So the total number of rows hasn't changed, 830. We now have that for each of these. So the second way you can build relationships is if you go to your model view and then go to Manage Relationships. And if you look at your icon, it says add, edit, or remove relationships between tables. So we're going to click on that. And now we're going to select a new relationship. We currently have no relationships in this model. And now we're going to start. We always want to start on what do we want to connect. So we want to connect the shippers, and we want to connect that to the orders table. And we got shipper ID, and we've got shipper ID. It's a one-to-many relationship. That's the only relationship we're going to talk about in this video, is the cardinality. And it goes in one direction. And we're going to select that. So that's one relationship. Now we're going to make the second relationship. We're going to go from customers, and we're going to go to orders. We're going to use the customer ID. It's selected on both. It's a one-to-many relationship. It's single direction. We want this relationship active. We're going to hit OK. Now we have two relationships, from the customers table to the orders table, from the shippers table to the orders table. We're going to close this out, and now we have our relationships again. A one-to-many relationship. The asterisk is many, because we only have one shipper, one unique shipper, and then for customers, we have only a bunch of unique customers. They're only in this table once, but they're in the orders table many times because orders can order more than one customer. Now, if we go back to the report view, we have our numbers again. Jose Pavarotti has 31 orders. Federal Shipping has 255 orders. So those are the two ways you can manage and build your relationships. In the model view, you can either get them directly from and drag them, or you can go to the Manage Relationships section up here and build out those relationships one at a time. And when you're starting out, I recommend building your relationships one at a time, and start with importing those data sources, cleaning up your data, and then connecting that data source. Remember, the steps are importing your data, cleaning your data, then you build your data model. So it's step number 3 in the process. Step number 4 is making your calculations in DAX, and then step number 5 is your data visualizations. That is a look at managing and building relationships in Power BI.